I used to think we were just like everyone else. You know the type. Mid-30s, modest home in the suburbs, 2 sedans in the driveway, a golden retriever who chased squirrels but never caught them. Her name's Molly. We were fine. My name's Daniel Brooks. I work at a hardware supply store in Denton, Texas. It's not glamorous, but it's steady. And for most of our marriage, I thought steady was enough. Rachel, my wife, worked in insurance claims. We met during a hailstorm, literally. My pickup had taken a beating, and she handled the damage report. I liked the way she smiled through stress. She liked that I wasn't trying to impress anyone. We were 24, and sure of nothing except each other. 12 years later, we had what I thought was a decent rhythm. We talked about repainting the living room every year but never did. We watched the same reruns of crime shows and laughed at jokes we'd heard a dozen times. She made chili that I swore could win contests. I grilled on Sundays. But there were signs. Not loud ones. Just flickers. She stopped asking me how my day went. Stopped laughing at the dumb voices I used to get a smile out of her. Her phone lived on silent. Face down. Even in the shower. One night I heard her giggle, this soft, surprised sound I hadn't heard in months. I looked over from the sink. She was holding her phone like it was something sacred. A light in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. When she saw me watching, it vanished. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said too quickly. "Just a funny meme from Taylor." Taylor. Her friend from Pilates, who always posted inspirational quotes about owning your happiness and cutting toxic ties. I knew it wasn't Taylor. I didn't say anything that night. Or the night after. Maybe I didn't want to believe it. Or maybe I just didn't know what to do with the truth. I remember the day it broke. Not like an explosion. More like glass slowly cracking. It was a Saturday. I'd just come back from the store with a box of screws and a new bird feeder. Molly met me at the door, tail wagging like I'd been gone for days. Rachel wasn't in the living room. Her car was still outside. "Rachel?" I called. No answer. I headed upstairs, light footsteps, not sure why I was walking like I might catch something I wasn't supposed to see. Her voice stopped me. Soft. Low. Like she was trying not to be heard. I stood outside our bedroom door and listened. "I miss you too." "No, he doesn't suspect a thing. He wouldn't know a clue if it hit him in the face." I think I stopped breathing. Then her laugh. That same light, warm giggle from the bathroom days before. I walked away. Quiet. Downstairs. I didn't storm in. I didn't say her name. I just sat on the bottom stair and stared at the front door, hands shaking. When she finally came down an hour later, she was humming. "Hey," she said, walking past me like nothing had shifted in the universe. "Want me to make sandwiches?" "Sure," I said. Voice steady, heart cracked. "Turkey's fine." It's strange, the things your mind does when it's trying to protect itself. The way it filters reality. Like if you just squint hard enough, it'll look like something else. Something safe. That night, I couldn't sleep. Rachel was next to me, breathing steady, like the world was right where she left it. I stared at the ceiling, counting the whir of the ceiling fan, trying to convince myself I was wrong. But I wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and the hum of her voice on the phone again, this time downstairs. When she heard my footsteps, she hung up fast. Too fast. "Morning," she said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Morning," I replied, grabbing a mug. Our fingers touched briefly on the coffee pot handle. Hers were cold. I wanted to ask. I wanted to scream. But instead I said, "You going into the office today?" "Yeah. Just a few things to wrap up." It was Sunday. I nodded. Pretended not to notice. Because pretending gave me time. And I needed time. Over the next few days, I started watching. Not like a detective, just like a man who finally opened his eyes. She was always dressed sharper than usual. Lipstick, heels, perfume she hadn't worn in years. And her smiles? They came too easily. Not with me, but when she was texting. Laughing quietly into her lap like she was 17 again. So I started writing things down. Times, names, changes in her patterns. I wasn't trying to build a case. I just needed to see it in black and white. Her mood shifted quickly. She got irritated when I asked normal questions. Where are you headed? Who is that on the phone? Want me to make dinner? Basic stuff. But now everything was treated like an interrogation. One night, she told me she was going to a work dinner. Just a client thing, she said, grabbing a coat I didn't recognize. Designer. Probably expensive. Definitely not something she got for herself. Which client? I asked, almost casually. She blinked. Markson Financial. Small bank. You wouldn't know them. But I did. I'd seen the name. On her desk. Twice. And I remembered it because it wasn't a client of her company's. It was a bank a few towns over. A boutique place. High-end. Wealth management, not claims. After she left, I looked it up. It didn't take long to find him. Gavin Fletcher. Vice President. Late 40s. Tall. Polished. The kind of smile that looked like it was used to saying yes and hearing yes in return. Photos of him at galas. Wearing tuxedos. Standing next to women who looked like magazine covers. Next to Rachel once, too. Not a posed picture. A candid one. She was laughing. Her hand on his chest. His eyes on her. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. For a long time, I sat in silence. Not out of sadness, but something more complicated. Disbelief mixed with disappointment. Shame that I'd let myself ignore the quiet unraveling. I closed the laptop. Walked outside. Sat on the porch swing with Molly pressed against my leg, tail still wagging, as if nothing in the world was broken. And for the first time in weeks, I cried. Not the loud kind. Just slow, silent tears that ran down my face and got caught in my collar. Because this was the moment I knew for sure. Rachel wasn't just drifting. She was gone. After that night, I stopped waiting for answers. I already had them. I didn't confront her. Not yet. What was the point of a storm if all it did was knock over furniture? I wanted to be smart. Precise. If Rachel had traded honesty for thrill, I wasn't going to meet her with rage. I was going to meet her with clarity. So I started separating things. Subtly. Our bank accounts, for one. We'd always shared everything. Joint checking, shared credit, one savings account. But now I opened a private account under my own name. Transferred little amounts, just enough not to be noticed. $150 here. $300 there. Refunds from returns I made. Extra hours I picked up at work. Then I pulled copies of our tax returns. Looked through our mortgage. Took pictures of every shared document in the filing cabinet and emailed them to myself. Labeled everything. It felt cold. Calculated. But I had to protect myself. Because Rachel was no longer my partner. One Friday, she said she was going to a team retreat at a lake house. I didn't ask questions. Didn't press. Instead, I said, "Hope the weather holds. Want me to water the plants while you're gone?" She blinked. I think she expected something. The funny thing about pretending is that eventually you get tired of the act. And when you stop pretending, the world starts to tilt in your favor again. I didn't change everything overnight, but I changed enough. I started working out again. Nothing flashy, just morning jogs with Molly, some weights in the garage. I shaved more often, wore nicer shirts to work, even when I didn't have to. It wasn't about winning her back. It was about remembering what it felt like to be someone I recognized. People noticed. My coworkers. The cashier at the deli. Even my boss, Mike, who asked if I'd be open to training for a management role. I said yes. Rachel barely noticed. She was preoccupied, always checking her phone, slipping away to take calls. Her affection had gone from a slow leak to a dried-out well. One evening, she came home later than usual, dropped her purse on the counter, and sighed like she was the only tired person in the house. "Tough day?" I asked, slicing vegetables for dinner. She paused, studied me. "Yeah," she said. "Long meeting. What's with the apron? You look like a cooking show host." I smiled. "Maybe I miss being useful." She gave a weak chuckle. "Well, dinner smells great." And just like that, she disappeared upstairs. But I noticed something. Her keys. She left them on the counter, along with the mail. I saw a fancy white envelope sticking out, the kind with gold lettering. It read, "Gavin Fletcher, Private Client Event Invitation." My stomach turned. Not from pain, but confirmation. She wasn't hiding it anymore. Or maybe she didn't care if I found out. That weekend, I went to the event. Not inside. Just parked across the street, down 2 blocks, where no one would think to look. I saw her arrive. She wore a navy blue dress I'd never seen. Hair up. Confident stride. She walked beside Gavin, arm brushing his. He looked like a man giving a tour of his kingdom. They laughed as they entered through tall glass doors into a world I was never meant to see. But I didn't feel small. I felt certain. This man didn't love her. He loved the way she made him feel. Fresh, dangerous, maybe even young again. And she didn't love him either. She loved the escape. The version of herself she saw in his admiration. But the thing about illusions? They don't last. 2 days later, she came home early. I was in the living room, paperwork on my lap, copies of our assets, printed emails, photos, everything. Molly was asleep at my feet. Rachel stood in the doorway. "We need to talk," she said. I closed the folder. Looked up. "All right." Her face was stiff. Her jaw tight. "I've been unhappy for a while. I think you know that." I nodded. "I do. And I think we should separate. I need to figure out who I am. I don't want to keep pretending we're okay." I let the silence hang there. "I agree," I said quietly. "But you should know something." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "I've been aware. 4 months. About Gavin." Her lips parted, then closed. "You've what?" "I didn't say anything because I wanted to handle this with respect. With clarity." I stood up, handed her the folder. She flipped through it slowly, page after page of everything she'd hidden, recorded without anger but with intention. "I already spoke to a lawyer," I continued. "This is not revenge. It's protection. For me." She looked stunned, like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. I didn't think you." "I know," I said. "You didn't." Her face paled. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to let you go," I said. "But I'm not walking away empty." She sank into the chair across from me, folder still in hand, shoulders suddenly smaller than I remembered. For the first time in a long while, I felt calm. Not happy. Not victorious. Just whole. The reckoning had arrived. Not in flames, but in quiet, deliberate steps. And I was ready. The house felt quieter after that conversation. Not tense, just still. Like the air itself was waiting to see what would happen next. Rachel didn't leave right away. She said she needed time to figure things out. I didn't argue. I just made my own arrangements. I moved some of my things into the guest room. Not out of bitterness, just space. Space I needed to breathe, and to see the situation for what it was, not what I wished it to be. We lived under the same roof for another 2 weeks. They were some of the strangest days of my life. Polite. Cordial. Empty. She went to work. I went to work. We passed each other in the hall, like distant relatives at a funeral. She stopped hiding her texts. Stopped covering her late arrivals. She wasn't smug, just numb. Maybe she thought this would be easier if we didn't speak much. And I let her believe that. But I was still living. Still moving forward. I started going out with friends again, guys I hadn't seen in months. We grab burgers, shoot pool, talk about everything except what I was going through. They knew, but they didn't make it awkward. They just made me feel normal again. I also started volunteering twice a week at a local tool library, a place where people can borrow hardware and equipment. It gave me purpose. I met people. Fixed things. Felt useful. One of the regulars, an older guy named Leon, said something to me one day while I was sharpening a mower blade. "You know what the trick is?" he asked. "To what?" "To surviving a break like this," he said, nodding knowingly. "You don't fill the hole with someone new. You fill it with something honest." That stuck with me. I didn't want to jump into anything else. I didn't want revenge or rebound or redemption. I wanted quiet integrity. A life I could stand in without compromise. Rachel finally moved out the following Thursday. She left me a note. Handwritten. On the kitchen counter. It said, "Daniel, I never meant to hurt you. I just got lost in who I wanted to be, and I stopped seeing who you were. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to be honest sooner. I hope you find peace. Rachel." I stood in the kitchen for a long time after reading it. No anger. No sadness. Just acceptance. She had chosen her road. Now it was time for me to walk mine. I cleaned out the bedroom. Donated her old books. Washed the sheets. Opened all the windows and let the house breathe. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night. It's been 8 months since Rachel left. The divorce was clean. Not easy, but civil. She didn't contest much. I think she expected me to fight, to rage, to cling. But I didn't. I took what was fair. I let her take what she thought she needed. And I moved forward. Gavin didn't stick around long after that. I found out through a mutual acquaintance that he needed space and wasn't ready for anything serious. Rachel moved in with a friend after he ended things. And for the first time, she saw how cold the world can be when the spotlight turns off. But that's not my story anymore. Mine looks different now. I got the promotion at work. Assistant manager, then manager. I never thought I'd care about spreadsheets and supplier invoices, but there's something rewarding about building trust and showing up when it matters. I still volunteer at the tool library. Leon and I became friends. We meet every Tuesday for coffee before the doors open. He tells me stories from his construction days. I tell him about Molly and the squirrel wars in my backyard. I even repainted the living room. A soft green. Clean. Fresh. And I planted a tree in the front yard this spring. A red maple. It's small now, but I like watching it stretch toward the light. There's something reassuring about slow, steady growth. Sometimes I think about Rachel. Not with bitterness, just distance. Like a chapter in a book I've finished. She made her choices. I made mine. And in the end, I think I came out with something she never really had. Peace. Real peace. It came not from revenge or being better off, but from knowing I didn't betray myself to survive what she did. I stayed true. I walked through it all with my dignity intact. That's not nothing. One Saturday morning, I sat on the porch with Molly at my feet, watching the sun rise. The sky was soft with orange and blue. Birds chirped. The world was quiet. A woman from down the street waved as she jogged past. I waved back. Nothing dramatic. Just a moment of calm. And in that stillness, I realized something. You don't always get the life you planned. But if you're patient and kind to yourself, you can build something better. Not louder. Not flashier. Just real. And real is enough.